Coming to you from Salt Lake City, Utah, is my cousin Natalie.
Hi.
And she, in her family, they have a wonderful bed and breakfast in Vermont. And this recipe is their favorite scones recipe that they make, and customers just love it. So she's going to make that for us today.
Yeah. So it's going to take eight teaspoons of baking powder. It's a lot of baking powder.
That's a good idea. 3½ cups of all-purpose flour.
It's ½ cup of sugar. We've got 8 teaspoons of baking powder in here. And then we're going to add the 3½ cups of flour. And then after that, we'll cut in the butter. So we're going to cut up some butter as well.
Okay. All right, 10 tablespoons
Yep.
of butter. And what do I do with it?
And then we're going to be cutting it into cubes. I'd say
Okay.
maybe a ½ inch.
Like that?
Yeah, and then you just cube
Like
it.
that again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then so
Okay, do you need the pastry?
no, we actually
Tool.
just use this tool with the mixer, and it makes the dough nice and lumpy, and it'll bind the
Okay.
butter to the flour.
Well, we like lumpy.
Well, and so so the recipe actually calls for 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but because this is salted butter, we're actually going to omit that because we don't want to have too much salt. So, because normally the butter in the recipe is unsalted, but it really doesn't matter. As long as you get the salt one way or the other, then it's fine. And then basically, the mixer will get this all lumpy, and then we'll add our wet ingredients, like the milk, the sour cream, the orange juice from the actual orange, and then I think that'll mostly be it.
I just can't wait to be baked.
Well, I hope they come out well. Alright, so now, we're going to mix this up to create a lumpy dough and to evenly disperse that butter. And then while we're doing that, we will mix together 1 cup of milk and a ½ cup of sour cream. We whisk those 2 ingredients together, and then they'll go into the dry mixture after we mix the butter in.
Milk and the sour cream.
Yes.
And how much milk?
So it's going to be a cup of milk, and then there's the ½ cup of sour cream. So you can see that we don't see any butter clumps anymore, which is good. They've all been integrated into the powder of the flour, which is good. This is what we need. So then we'll add all of our wet ingredients and the orange zest that comes as next. I would probably add them together, I think.
Now, do you want this side, this side, this side?
The finest one.
This,
So it'll be
this
that
is the
one.
finest one.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's the one we use. Do you want me to do it?
No.
I can do it.
No, I'm just thinking. You don't get as much or something.
So we'll be zesting actually 2 oranges because these are slightly smaller than what we normally use.
Well, should we just use
And
3?
I think
We've
2
got
is
plenty
okay.
of oranges.
So I'm thinking, I guess, okay, so what we'll do is we'll add this in, but we'll add in this, but I won't mix it up too much, because the thing is with this dough is you don't want to over mix it. If you over mix it, it pushes air out, and then you don't get the rise that you would like with these scones. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add the sour cream and the milk, but I'm not going to do a lot of mixing until we're ready to add the orange zest, because that'll take a minute to get those done. So we'll just do a little bit just to integrate it, and then I'm going to leave it alone, because then we're going to add the zest in there. And then once we add the zest, I have to check the recipe, sorry.
Is this orange? Is that orange zested enough, or do I need to get a little more?
You can get a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just don't want to get your fingers.
Yeah, don't get your fingers. So once we add the zest of the 3 medium-sized oranges, which is actually more orange than we normally add, we'll go ahead and juice using this very fancy juicer over here. We'll juice one of the oranges in order to get the 1 teaspoon of orange juice, and I think that's the last ingredient for the actual pastry.
Okay.
And the rest of it will be.
Then I'll let her take it.
I can do it, I promise. I do this
I'm
a
getting
lot.
slower and slower.
I'll do it. All around the entire orange, even at the ends.
Go like this. Look how nice this orange is. But they are small. I'm glad we did.
They're on the smaller side,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna. Oh, Henry, come here. You can do this. Here, let him stand. Oh, good.
Like, I like it. I lost it. It was totally missing. Oh no. Lost. It feels weird on my hand. Like,
Whoa!
Okay, I think that's as much zest as we're gonna get off of this. This is a good amount. I'm not really sure how much this is, maybe a couple of tablespoons. And then what we'll do is we're going to add this, we're gonna add it to the batter. And then we'll put in a tablespoon of juice and then mix it up, and the batter will be ready to bake. I've never used one of these before. It's so nice. We usually have to do this by hand, and it's a lot more labor intensive, but look at all of that. We're getting so far, we have 250 milliliters or 8 ounces. That's actually pretty good for 3 oranges. That's pretty awesome. We don't need all 8 ounces. We're just gonna end up using probably a total of 5 tablespoons.
And then Henry will drink the rest.
I guess Henry can drink the rest, yeah. So this is the last ingredient we're adding to the batter. It's the 1 tablespoon of freshly squeezed orange juice. We've already got the zest in there from before. And now we mix it up, but not too much. Just enough to start so that it combines and it disperses. Okay, so you can see it's following, it's getting all clumped together and coming apart from the sides. So that's a good sign. So this is the point we probably want to stop. And it's very sticky and very annoying to work with, but it comes out really well. So you can see it's very, very sticky. So when you handle this, you probably want to handle it on with some floured hands a little bit. Oh gosh, I can't get it off. So this is a little trick that I learned from Jacques Pépin, the French chef. If your parchment paper is not sticking the way that you want it to, use a little bit of butter. We're gonna see if it's gonna work on this, though it should.
Oh, looky there.
There we go.
It works.
Yeah, if you're having the same trouble at home, butter will work, usually. Yeah, you'll whisk it up, and that'll be our egg. And we put them on the baking sheet. The egg wash will sit on them for a few minutes before they actually go into the oven. Because you want the egg to kind of soak up.
All right, now since I have 2 eggs in here, I'm going to do 2 tablespoons.
That's probably wise. So, if you make this at home, oh, I have a thing somewhere.
Oh, here.
Okay. So, if you do end up making this at home, Do not be afraid if your dough is really sticky. It's supposed to be sticky and very inconvenient to work with. Not very easy, and you will have to flour your hands, not over the parchment paper. You'll have to flour your hands to be able to handle this dough, and even then it's still going to be quite sticky. So what you want to do is you want to grab it and form it into balls that are about 2 to 3 inches in width. This is probably pretty good. This is about 2 inches-ish.
Kind of like in the South, you make sausage balls?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And then you want to flatten them slightly, which again is kind of hard because of the stickiness. So you may have to use a grease spatula. You can do that too, and it's actually kind of easier, but okay. This recipe yields a lot. I think it yields at least 3, maybe it's a little bit bigger,
Okay.
a little bit. This recipe yields a lot, sometimes as much as 3 dozen. So we make it for big groups at the end. And kids really like it. It's got a lot of flavor to it. Let's maybe do 9 on here. As I forget how much they expand. There is a lot of baking powder in this, so they do expand a lot. So we'll do 9 and then see how that goes. And then you'll put the egg wash on them before they go into the oven. But leave that egg wash on there for a few minutes. You really want that egg to sit in.
I can smell the orange.
Yeah.
Your mine big enough for you?
Yeah, I think we're good. They're so sticky. They're so sticky. Okay. Yeah, this looks good. Yeah, looks good.
Now you need a brush.
Yeah, we'll get like a little brush. It can be silicone or so now we're going to do our egg wash. You just want enough to cover it. And this will give them a nice shine when they go into the oven. I think it might also help raise them a little bit, but I'm not really sure. There's also a lot of baking powder in there. So the scones have been sitting with their egg wash for about, let's say 2 to 3 minutes. You can see the egg already is soaking into the dough, which is exactly what we want. We want it to kind of soak in a bit, help retain that moisture. So while we're waiting on the scones, we're going to go ahead and do our glaze. We got 2 cups of powdered sugar, and then it's going to be based on the consistency. So the recipe calls for 2 to 4 tablespoons of the fresh squeezed orange. I'm going to start off with 3 tablespoons because I'm pretty sure. And if you go too much, it's not a big deal because you can always add more sugar to get that consistency that you like. It should be thin, but not too thin.
I think it looks like it could use just a little more, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. So this is still pretty thick actually. We might have added a little bit too much of the powdered sugar. So I'm going to actually add tablespoon number 5. And so again, you kind of have to wing it sometimes if it's too thick.
And you said that you put the glaze on the scones when they come out of the oven?
Yes.
Or do you let them sit for a little bit?
No, for the most part, we glaze them when they're fresh out of the oven because we really want that glaze to seep into the dough.
Sounds great.
So,
Okay.
okay. So I'm happy with this consistency. It's not too thin, but it's also on the thicker side. Now, as you're waiting for the scones to come out of the oven, of course, as you let this sit, it's going to become very thick, and that's okay because the idea when you glaze the scones as they're warm, the glaze will just soften right back up. So don't worry if it sits here and it gets thick.
So it's glaze is kind of like an icing that you just put on top of it.
Right.
And with the scones warm, it'll just spread all over and inside everything.
Yeah, it'll seep right in there, so it's really nice. So we're at 400 degrees. The egg wash has set nicely in the dough, and we're gonna put it in. Recipe calls for 10 to 15 minutes, but we're gonna start off with 10 and then see how it goes from there. Okay, that's what's causing the smoke is the butter. But yeah, you can tell they're browning up at the top. So these are ready. They have a nice golden top. So we're gonna go ahead and take these out of the oven. You can put hot stuff on this, right? It's okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Put this back in. So we determined 13 minutes, right? It's about what this oven will do. So we'll do 13. So once they're out of the oven, you can immediately transfer them onto a platter. They smell very heavily of orange. You can really
great.
smell the orange. Smells delicious. Okay, so glaze them while they're hot because you want this to seep into the dough. I'm very generous with my glaze. We also have 23, so I think I can afford to be a little generous. So put a dollop on there, let it melt and trickle down the sides, and then you can kind of mess with it later.
How did they figure out what a dollop is?
I don't know. It's an expression my father-in-law loves to use. He likes to say a dollop.
Maybe it's English.
These will be a bit messy, so don't be shy. It's gonna run down the sides, it's gonna get on the platter, it's gonna get on your hands when you eat it, but that's part of the fun, so.
And it's going to get on your finger when you lick it.
Yep, so you can see it's melting on the hot dough and going down the sides. And I'm getting it on the counter.
Oh, well.
But yeah, I like to get all the tops because I really want it to seep in there and keep the dough moist.
You can always make more.
You can always
So
make
what do
more
you
glaze.
think, Henry? You excited
Like-
about eating them?
I'm going to get this little bit for her.
There we go. That's exactly how they're supposed to look. So let's hope they taste really good.
Well, we have several taste testers here today. And Henry wants to be the first one. Here's one for you, Linda. But he's still chewing.
Good.
Like
So
it?
you like it, huh? Is finger looking good?
Now him.
I eat mine with a fork.
Mm-hmm.
Too much. Yep, they taste exactly like they're supposed to. You did well.
Heather?
Okay.
Well, since we have finished our scones, and while we're waiting on the next ones to come out, I'd like to ask Natalie a little bit about the inn, the beautiful marble mansion.
Yep.
Where is it?
So it's called the Marble Mansion Inn. It's a bed and breakfast located in Fairhaven, Vermont, which is in the center part of the state. And it's a historical building built in 1867 by the cousins of the famous Revolutionary War hero Ethan Allen. So it's been around for a while, and I think since the 70s or the 80s, it's been run as a bed and breakfast.
10 years ago, she got married at the mansion. So we all got to go as a family. The big girls now were little girls, so they were the bridesmaids, and her sister was there, and everybody was there. Dad, mother-in-law.
Yeah, it
All
was a
these
fun
people.
time. It was nice. It was a nice time in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a very pretty area of the country. Foliage season's very pretty. We're not close to any of the ski resorts though, but people love to go there just to be able to go to the lakes that are around us and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
how many stories is this? It seems like we were walking up several flights of stairs.
So there's 3 floors, but there's also a half floor because it's such an old building. So you've got the first floor, which is the double parlor. You've got one accessible room on that level, and then on the second floor you've got how many rooms? I think it's 5 rooms. Yes, we have five rooms. And then there's a second and a half floor, which is an Art Deco suite. It's a very neat area. And then the third floor, which we have 4 more rooms. So it's quite large. I think it's over 6,000 square feet last time I looked. So it's a big place.
And they have been working on this all these years.
Yep, we've owned
Redoing
it
things.
since-
I'm always seeing pictures up.
Yep.
Y'all need to go look. Go look at this place. It's beautiful. And we're gonna put pictures at the end of the inn. And we're gonna post this wonderful recipe. Everyone's gonna wanna try it. I guess it's the English way of making biscuits, only they're sweet.
Yeah, it's not your typical traditional scone, especially with the glaze, but it's very good and it's a great breakfast option. We do it a lot at the end for bigger groups because the recipe yields so many scones. So yeah, if you ever end up staying there and you want to try these, you can always ask the chef, aka my mother-in-law, and we'll see if we can make them for you. Yeah, these
You know
these
the hard
come out really
part
well.
is
Okay, Natalie, the inn, it's called the Marble Inn.
The Marble Mansion Inn.
Marble Mansion Inn.
Yep.
In Fairhaven,
Yes.
Vermont. Now, why is it called the Marble Mansion?
So the mansion was built in 1867 by the cousin of Ethan Allen, who was a Revolutionary War hero.
And not the furniture store.
Not
guy.
the furniture store Ethan Allen. And so basically, the marble that the inn is actually made of, especially on the outside of the building, it's sourced locally from Proctor, Vermont. And in 1867, they took the slabs of marble from the quarry, numbered them, and placed them on the property, and waited until they could actually assemble the entire house with this marble. So that's why it's called that. I think it's on the National Registry of Historic Places, so we're protected.
And it's sturdy. And
It's-
still standing.
It's very sturdy, but there are pros and cons to using marble. The pros are that they're very beautiful, it's historic and it's unique, and it keeps you nice and cool in the summertime. But in the wintertime, it's hard to heat, and the Wi-Fi signal has to be boosted quite a bit. I think we have to have 5 boosters throughout the entire place because there's 2 inches of lead in between each slab of marble.
Wow.
So that makes it hard for the Wi-Fi.
Well,
But other than that, we're good.
We have trouble with Wi-Fi out here in Georgia. So,
Yeah.
and Henry really likes the glaze. Here are the scones, the ones we haven't eaten. And we'll put the recipe at the end.